Thank
This is
you.
awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Chimdi.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Abby, and thanks for having me here today. I just want to say, congrats to everyone who has kind of made it this far. We've kind of learned a lot about Tableau with respect to, the basics of Tableau, building calculations, formatting, filtering, all the basics of, getting into data visualization. And so today for the finale, what I'm hoping to do with you together is to sort of bring all of that stuff together and sort of show you how to utilize that in designing a full dashboard from A to Z in Tableau. And the initial idea I had in mind was to come here and build something in front of you. But I figured because you've learned so much already, I much rather equip you with the ability to take those tools that you've learned and utilize them for yourself in different situations. And so for today, we're going to go over a bunch of stuff. And then at the end of it, we're going to look at a use case that brings it all together that hopefully explains it for us. And so to get us going, I'm going to share my screen. I've got a bunch of slides for us, and then we'll look at a dashboard at the end of this. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. Please let me know when you can see it. Oh, good? Okay, perfect. So today we're going to be looking at, let me get this out of the way, how to build an effective dashboard in Tableau. Like I said, my name is Chimdi Wonsu. And before we go in, I'm just gonna give like an extremely brief intro to myself. I'm a data visualization developer or Tableau developer or data viz designer, kind of different names there. But the long and short of it is I build business dashboards for businesses to allow them to connect with their data. I'm also a Tableau visionary, just like Abby. I'm a Tableau ambassador. And so far, I've been using Tableau full time for about 3 years. But of course, before that, I did a bunch of data analyst reporting type of work. So I've been doing data for some time now. So that's enough about me. I'm not the important guy here today. So what we're going to be looking at, I'll give you a brief agenda. I've broken it out into two phases, right? So of course, before you go and build your dashboard, there are a bunch of things that you need to do prior in order to actually create something that's going to be used by the users and something that they're going to appreciate. So we have before the build, where we're going to look at who's the audience, the objective of this dashboard, why we would want to build it, and what's supposed to be in this dashboard for us to consider it a successful dashboard. And then we're going to talk about actually building the dashboard. And then we're going to take all these things you've learned about formatting, titles, building charts, and think about how can we utilize those to build narratives within our dashboard, aka quote unquote storytelling in the dashboards. And then we're going to look at how to incorporate design into our dashboards, because that's another thing I think that will be very helpful for you in successfully producing dashboards that succeed in the place of work there. So let's jump right into it. Before the build, the first thing that we would even need to think about is who is the audience? So the who, right? We want to think about who are they, what they do. So what type of business are they in, for example, and how does their day-to-day look like, right? Now, once we have this, we can start to understand the types of decisions that they're making in their day-to-day. And the whole point of doing this is to understand what exactly do they need to see that we can give them based on their need. We also need to consider the level of expertise of the audience. So in how we're laying out the information, do we need to give a little bit more info about the background? Do they know things very well? Are they inside an organization? Are they outside an organization? These are the types of things that you need to start thinking about before you even begin to think about what are we building in the dashboard? So why is that important? I like to say different audience, different interest. So for example, if we look at a company and we look at the different layers of organization, it's easy to think and understand that an executive is going to be using information differently than a middle manager. And here are some few examples of how that may differ. So for an executive, they want to know how's the business doing. They're looking for high-level KPIs, right? Year-over-year performance, a quick snapshot of how's the business doing because they need to plan strategy. They don't have time to go into details, and so we don't want to boggle them down with details. So that's going to require a different strategy than, let's say, number two here, if we were to look at middle management, where they're not as high as the executive, but they are high enough that they need a good enough view of what's happening to understand the different trends where they can begin to make decisions to influence the business. Now we go to an analyst where they're not a decision maker, but they need to understand and probably monitor what's going on in the business. So they may need to look at a different set of information, perhaps maybe day-to-day operations, operational level data that allows them to know what's going on in the business. And then a different kind of audience might be external partners, where these might be people who they're working with us in our business and they know a little bit about what we do, but because they're on the outside, they may not know as much as we do. And so if we're building products for them, we're now going to build it in a different type of way where we might include a bit more info to teach them as well as inform them while they use the dashboards. And so these are just examples of why the audience that you're building for should really drive what you're putting into that dashboard. So once you figure out who are the people, what they do, and just you have a good understanding of your stakeholders, now we want to think about, okay, why should we build this dashboard for them, right? We're going to notice that we need to have a business use case. And so what's a business use case? The simplest way to think about it is, what is this business going to use the dashboard for, right? What kind of questions do they need to answer? What are they going to be doing with this dashboard that we're providing for them? And having this information is going to help us understand how to put things in place. So going deeper into that, when we think about why we're building the dashboards, we need to first assert what is the business value that we need in this dashboard? Meaning, why are you going to build this dashboard? How is it going to help the company? What are they going to use it for? What type of insights are we going to put in this dashboard? Meaning, for these people, based on the job they're doing, what kind of information do they need? What are the must-haves on that dashboard for them to be able to successfully see what they need to see, right? And then we now need to think about, okay, now that we know what they need to know, we can provide them the answers. And then what are they going to be doing with those answers? So now when we know what they're going to be doing with that information, we can now craft our narratives in a way that give them the ability to make those decisions based on the insights that we've shown them. And again, one of the worst things that can happen if you talk to, someone like Abby or people who are in the field, one of the worst things that can happen to you is you'll spend like weeks and months building this dashboard that you think is fantastic. You apply all the latest techniques, all the latest designer things. It's amazing. You show your friends, your coworkers, beautiful. But then you launch the dashboard, no one touches it, right? And you think to yourself, what happened? Like, why is no one using this amazing dashboard? More than likely, I would encourage you, if that happens, to go back and think about the audience and the why. And if you start to see, okay, what are these people actually looking for? You might realize that something that they're looking for is actually missing in that dashboard. So the point is, the best dashboard will be a useless dashboard if it's not useful to the people who request it. So that's one thing to always keep in mind. We want our efforts to be fruitful. And so we have to think and plan ahead in order for that to happen. So now that we understand why we would be building the dashboard for the audience, of course, the next logical thing would be, what are we going to put inside that dashboard? So, for example, we need to understand what kind of KPIs and key metrics are important for the business. How are they going to be able to use this information, right? Each company, each business, they typically have different analysis that they want to see. And again, this is all gathered from having those discussions with your stakeholders. So for some people, they want to look at target attainment. Some people might want to look at performance according to, period growth, year over year, month over month. Some companies might want to do project tracking. There are different types of analysis that are available, but in order to provide what's useful, we need to understand what they need. And finally, what are the measures of success, right? And so why is this important? When we're building a product that's supposed to help the business, we need to understand, okay, now that we have these numbers, now that we have given this information in this dashboard, how do we know what's good and how do we know what's bad? So that's another thing where we would now need to show the type of context that they need to see to understand where they're standing in their business. So now that we've talked about the audience, what they do, and why we'll be building the dashboards, we want to look at how to build narratives in our dashboard using the tools that we have. And so what I like to say is building narratives is essentially helping the audience navigate the dashboard in a meaningful way. So what does that mean when we look deeper, right? Have you ever been to a place where essentially you launch this new app, you see something amazing on the screen, and you're thinking about, okay, where do I begin? How do I interact with this? And like, me, anytime I see that, I don't even waste my time. I just shut off the screen, I go to a different website. And that's sort of the same thing that happens when we build our dashboards. If we haven't placed information in a useful way, if we haven't put things in a way that the user is able to go through and kind of logically follow, then they may not want to use it because they don't understand. And this is where building narratives becomes important, because once you understand what they need to see, you can place that in an important way that allows them to essentially have what they need when they use that dashboard. So here are a few tips for building the narratives. Basically, we want to tailor the dashboard content. So this, again, like we said, is guided by this audience, which we would have known about, assuming we've done our job in the beginning. What do they want to see? You tailor that in there, and we use that to build the different narratives that fulfill their wants for the business. We want to use logical information flow for people to understand. So imagine if you were to open up a dashboard, right? And you basically see information where it's like, you're looking at dates and maybe the dates start from 2021 backwards. You're going to think like, why is that happening? Obviously, you want to start the dates from, less to more. It's kind of the same thing with information. There's a sequence of information and there's a way you might want to keep things and where it's going to be useful for the people. So let's say I'm an executive and I want to see my KPIs. You give me my bands, my year-over-year details at the top as an example. And then you might want to come down here and tell me how am I doing basically across maybe different stores, different departments, and we go down, down, down. And the way to understand the order of importance that we might want to use is, again, talking to the people to understand their needs, what are they looking for, what are their priorities, and then we can use that to create that narrative that helps them engage with that dashboard. We want to highlight the key messages on our dashboards. So basically, we don't want to just build a bunch of charts for the user. We want to make sure that these things which they've told us they're looking for, they're going to be able to find them easily on that dashboard. In order to help them, we can use things like adding relevant context. So you want to use things like your titles to describe what's being shown. You want to add things like subtitles, where that gives a little bit more context. If you can add some annotations to your charts to give a little bit of explanation, we can do that. Do you want to label your charts to add some percentages so that it's easy to see? We can use that to, again, keep telling those stories. Something as simple as using a highlight color. Yes, it may look nice on the dashboard, but we can use that to build a narrative and show and direct. When they see the color, they know what's encoded in the color. And it's just, again, that's just another tool that we can use to teach and tell stories with our dashboards. Next, we want to think about, okay, how can we incorporate design into the dashboards? And then what does that even mean? Basically, design isn't necessarily about, okay, is this a nice looking dashboard? Are there beautiful colors used? Is it nice to look at? Yes, that's actually a very important part of design, because people definitely like to interact with things that, they find aesthetically pleasing, et cetera, et cetera. But more importantly, I consider design making the dashboard user-friendly, aesthetically pleasing, and easy to use for its intended purpose. And so how to think about this is to basically say that there is a way that we can design our dashboards and lay out the information where it's very easy for some people to use, or we can build it in a way that's going to be very difficult for them to use, right? We want to be as simple and easy as possible. We want to make sure things stand out really quickly. So that's how you want to think about your design. Make it functional, make it simple. And we're going to look at a few tips here today of what to think about when thinking about what does it mean to design in my dashboard. So here are a few tips that we can use. So first, we want to think about using effective layouts and charts, right? So your layout, when you think about a layout, basically your layout is just how are you putting your charts on your dashboard? How are you laying out information in your dashboard? That is solely up to the discretion of the developer or the designer. But of course, it's going to be beneficial if it is driven by the desire of the stakeholder. So we can thoughtfully organize the layout in a way where we present the information in a way that makes sense. We want to make sure that the charts that we're using, they are telling the right story for the correct use case, right? And so at the end of this, I'm actually going to provide some resources where there are a lot of tools that we can use to choose the right charts, because the way to think about it is for each situation that we want to show, there's a proper chart to use in showing that, right? As you can guess, for something as, for example, like going to show trends over time, then it makes sense to use something like a line chart. If you want to show percent of total, maybe you have a few enough categories, you might want to use some type of proportion chart or whatever the case may be. But essentially, using these charts in the right way communicates the right message to the stakeholders. So just keep that in mind. We want to try to do a clean look. This is something that, again, clean is very subjective, but what I can share with you is that if we are building dashboards and we're putting too much information on there, what we're basically asking the users and the audience to do is to try to sort through everything that's there and try to look for what's important, right? But it's kind of the same way where if you're with someone and you're trying to get a message out of them, it's really annoying if they're just taking you in circles and they're bombarding you with a bunch of unnecessary stuff. You just want to know, here's what I need from you. Can you give that to me? And we need to have the same kind of thoughts with our dashboards, basically. If you keep things clean, not only is it aesthetically pleasing, but you can actually utilize that cleanness to guide the user throughout the dashboard. In the same way, when thinking about incorporating good design, we want to think about providing helpful interactivity. So what does this mean? We want to give people options to explore, and we want to explain how to use those options on the dashboard. So for example, let's say we meet someone who is essentially looking to understand their business over time. And let's say they have different stores, different, regions, et cetera, et cetera. We want to be able to give them the high level information, but assuming they need to be able to dig deeper based on what they've told us, then we want to be able to provide that information in a way that makes sense. They can filter through. We're showing them with whatever functionality we're providing, here's how you interact with it. Because people need to know how to interact with the product to actually be able to use the product. And it's up to us to actually give them the chance to do that by helping them with all of this stuff here and giving them those insights that allow them to see the business and make those decisions that they're looking to make. Other things we can do is to use optimal text. So optimal text is basically what we can say is, quote unquote, the right amount of text. But realistically, there is no right amount of text. I say use the amount of text that is needed without overwhelming. So what does that mean? How can we use this? We can leverage text hierarchy. So for example, in this viz over here, you can see that this on the left-hand side is much bigger because this is basically encompassing what we're talking about. This is the build. And now what are we talking about? We're talking about tips for incorporating design. Here's a little bit smaller, but still bigger than this, where, okay, this is now the next subheader, optimal text. And now we have here where it's a bit smaller and then it's gray. And looking at something like this, even though I haven't told you what you should look at first. What is the title? What is the subtitle? And what are the text? You can probably think about and understand all of that stuff from looking at this slide because of what I've used here, which is text hierarchy, which is basically just leveraging different text sizes, widths, and um, um, basically, if something is more important, you want it to stand out. If it's less important, you want to stand out less. So that's how to think about that. We want to use readable fonts because, of course, it's all about communication and sharing. And if a person is not able to see, then unfortunately, they're not able to understand. We want to keep in mind that we want to use text only if necessary because at the core of data visualization, as we all know, is about representing things graphically because we want to take advantage and leverage that human perception that takes in information quicker visually, as opposed to looking at tables and spreadsheets and things like this. So we don't want to go back to just bringing a bunch of words in, but we can utilize words to help explain things. And that's why we say optimal text. If it is helpful, utilize it and give the information and make it stick more. Color, this is one that I find it's a bit controversial because, when we say we want things to look beautiful, we're kind of saying, yes, use nice colors, use this, use that. But what we're actually saying is, color isn't something you just want to throw on your dashboard because you have the option to. Color, we say, is for communication, not beauty. Like, say, like my girlfriend, when she wants to go out, we're going out, I take her out, she puts on makeup. That makeup is going to enhance her beauty, it's going to help her out, et cetera, et cetera. She can choose whether or not to do it. It doesn't really matter to me. But when you now go on a dashboard, we can't just apply makeup for the sake of applying makeup because we want to make the dashboard look nice. We actually have to think about what are we going to put there. And so we can utilize color as another tool to communicate where, yes, it has to look nice, but don't just put it in there because that's just more information to throw people off. So if it has no use, don't put it there. Also, we want to leverage company colors where possible. So sometimes when we work with companies, they either already have like their company colors, if they don't have that, you can maybe work with them to create those colors. People do like to see their themes and their palettes displayed on products. So, if they've never seen a dashboard built with their company colors and logo, that's something that sometimes will excite people and it makes the product feel like theirs. So again, it's just a little thing. If you have access to company colors, use that and work with them to make sure that you're utilizing them in a way that works with their original strategy for branding. Of course, with everything we've said, it's easy to understand that less color is better. And why is this? It's because, it's just like, say, if I'm a person where every time you see me, I'm just yapping my mouth, I don't shut up, it's going to be hard for you to know when to listen to me, right? And in the same way, if there's just color splattered everywhere and anywhere on the dashboard, then people are not going to know what colors are important and what they should pay attention to. So how we can utilize and leverage this is that basically wherever we use color, it has to have some kind of meaning we're going to use less color at the end of the day, which is going to be overall better for the user because we're not overwhelming them. And of course, one aspect which sometimes get overlooked is accessibility. And this is for people with different types of, impairments or whatever it is that may stop them from maybe seeing properly. We still want them to be able to interact with our products, whether it's something to do with color blindness or even blind people. There are different ways that we can do this. For example, you can use a color blind tester to make sure that the color palette is colorblind friendly and all these types of things. So it's just being considerate and thoughtful in our design. And that's something to keep in mind when utilizing colors. All right. So finally, to wrap that up, I would say that good design is functional design, meaning that in thinking about how we're designing our layout, in thinking about how we're placing our filters, in thinking about how we're utilizing our colors, as long as we're using that for a function to meet these needs that we've gathered from our audience that we started to communicate and connect with at the beginning, then that design is more than likely going to help us drive that product to be a successful product that actually has impact for the business. And to think about how to address this, just think about it like whatever you feel like putting on your dashboard, you can evaluate. If it has no purpose, it shouldn't exist on the dashboard, right? It's kind of like in your dating, right? There's some stuff that you see that are like red flags and you're like, no, done. Same thing with your dashboard. If you see something on there and it has no use, that's a red flag. Pluck it out and remove it from your dashboard so you don't waste your users' attention. All right. So now that we've gone forth from how to incorporate design, I've kind of laid out a few basic general steps for building dashboards in Tableau. Obviously, depending on what company and what project and whatever it is, these may sort of move around. You can add steps, you can remove steps, but these are things that you should expect to be doing in order to have a successful dashboard. First, we want to make sure that we've gathered our validated requirements. So all these conversations and all the beautiful information that we've gathered from the audience, we want to make sure that we put these into requirements. We validated them with the user, and we know that, okay, this is all going to be what they're looking for. Wireframes, these are just basically like samples of what the dashboard could look like. They're not like working prototypes per se, but they kind of give a good image. Usually this is one thing that we can utilize to actually start getting feedback from the user very early on to make sure that their desires and their wishes are making it into the product. Once we have all of that information, we want to get access to the data, however that data is. Sometimes you're going to be accessing it by yourself. Other times you're going to be working with companies that have data teams that are going to work with you to create those tables and then supply you with access to those tables. Depending on that, you're going to need your access. Once you get your access, now you can connect to Tableau, which is basically everything we've been doing for this entire bootcamp, connecting to Tableau, utilizing the calculations, the functionality, everything there. Now we can start to think about how we're going to use that to appease our customers. Sometimes you're going to get clean data. A lot of times you're not going to get clean data. So you're going to have to clean that to match in line with whatever it is that is required from the users. So sometimes you have metrics that you might need to convert into KPIs by combining them. All this kind of stuff, you can do that in Tableau. You can prep it in Tableau Prep, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you're keeping that in mind before you even start building. Now you want to explore the data. Why do you want to explore the data? Because we have collected all the requirements and we know what they need. So now that we've seen the data, do we have what's needed to answer these questions? Ideally, we would have already made sure that, the data access and everything is factored in these needs, and now we can validate. But of course, we still want to start to create and check out these analysis to make sure that what we were looking for has been provided, right? We can start to create the necessary calculations based on what's necessary. So some metrics are easy to decipher, but sometimes if you're working with, a unique company, you might need to work with them to create sort of like a calculation index or a calculation glossary, where it's just listing out, these are the different definitions, these are their different calculations. That way there's an understanding on where everyone is with respect to how things are defined. Now you can start to build out your charts and create those insights utilizing those things we've talked about in, the building narratives, right? Utilizing those needs to craft stories in our dashboard that help answer the questions that they need to answer. After you build the charts, you can start to add your interactivity for your filtering to give people the ability to explore your dashboard. Once that's done, you now format and clean it up to, meet the branding, remove all the clutter, remove all the noise, like what we just talked about in how you're designing. If it is useless, if it serves no purpose, please take it off. And now, once we're done that, okay, we have a product that we want to be able to show. Before we do any of that, we want to basically review the requirements that we've gathered in step one. We want to make sure that everything that's looked for, everything that's requested, everything that's agreed upon is on that dashboard. Now we can publish it to Tableau, right? Whether that's Tableau desktop, Tableau server, Tableau cloud, whatever sharing strategy is required. This is basically a factor of who is the client, who you're working with. You'll work with them together to decide how you're going to share this. At this point, you can put it there. And now once it's there and you've tested it and the functionality is how you expect it, now we're going to get that in front of the stakeholders, who are the people. Now, by this point in time, hopefully, like we've still been discussing with them, showing them the ideas, but this is where we're showing them the actual finished product to allow them use it and then get some feedback where we might now end up needing to change things. And here's just a note to, like I said before, get user feedback as much as possible throughout the build. It's very tempting to wait till the end when we have a finished product that we're proud of. You know, we're shy sometimes. It's like, oh no, I'm not done yet. It's not beautiful. I don't want to show it. But the truth is, it actually is better to show your work while you work so that the users, the audience, if possible, or any representative for them, they can get to see what's coming. And so that if it's not going in the right direction, they can let you know ahead of time rather than at the end when you're done, you've put in all the effort only to realize that it wasn't what they wanted. So to make sure that everything is still in alignment with our needs, I would recommend as often as you can, get that feedback, get that feedback, get that feedback. All right. All right. So now we're going to have a quick look at a use case based on some of the things we're talked about. We're going to factor it all in here. So we have company OTBY. They're an advertising company, and we came through as a bunch of consultants. We're here to develop some dashboards for them. And we've got to understand that this is mainly for their executives. So they're not looking for too much information. They just want to understand what is the state of the business. They want to understand the year-over-year performance. And they have a few questions that they would like to answer with this dashboard. So they want to know how our KPIs performing year over year. So we need to be able to give them that. They want to know how we trending monthly with our metrics. They want to know specifically, as an advertising company, what devices have the highest views and conversions. So that way they can tailor their ads to meet whatever device size is converting. Because again, that's just another layer that they need for their business. They would like to view key user actions across dimensions. So they would like to view key user actions across other dimensions. So key user actions are part of this company where on their page, you can sign up, you can do this, you can do that. And they want to see how those are performing across these dimensions. And so to meet this need, I've kind of built out a basic, super basic Tableau dashboard, which again, I can also share with you after this. And what I'm going to do in this section of things with the remaining, I guess, 20 or so minutes that we've got, I'm going to quickly run through the dashboard and talk about how this meets the need. That way you can make those connections to what we've just done. And then my hope is that when you go away from here, you can start to make those connections on your own for when I'm talking to my stakeholder, what kind of things am I collecting and how can I translate those things into the dashboard that they want? Okay, so with that, I'm going to quickly load up Tableau. So actually, let me stop sharing. And I'm going to reshare. And please let me know when you can see my screen. Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to go into presentation mode to keep this clean and clear. Awesome. So over here, we have a basic web traffic dashboard, which I quickly threw together to sort of illustrate some of the things that we've talked about here. So I'm just going to delineate all of this stuff here and talk about what's being shown. So we see here, we have a basic title, super simple, OTBY web traffic dashboard, so that whoever comes here, they know exactly what they're looking for. Something like this, honestly, is very generic. What I found works for me is actually when you connect with your clients, they can actually give you suggestions for what they want this to be called. So for stuff like this, you don't even have to stress. Work with them. What do they want to see? We have the main title over here, which lets people know that this is our executive overview. And we're saying, what are we showing here? We are showing how does December 2021 compare with December 2022 compare with December 2021. So this goes back to that year-over-year analysis which they're looking for. And so to facilitate this, we've actually added in a bunch of filters here where they can cycle through the different years so they can see everything at that level to explore. So for example, we go 2022, it filters the entire dashboard. 2021, it filters to 2021 and it just instantly compresses to 2022. So that way, as long as they're doing business, they can always see that year over year across whatever dimensions that they want. They can also look at it at the month level as well too. So say they want to look at November. Now they see November here, and then, you know, so on and so forth. So we'll get deeper into this later on. Here we have a basic identification. This is just, again, to show who is on this dashboard. This is just one of those design things that personalizes the experience for the people. So Tableau allows us to essentially utilize a function that pulls the ID of whoever is logged in. So for now, this is my name. Anyone else who logs in, it shows them their name and it personalizes that experience. Now, looking at the KPIs and metrics, the company, from discussing with them, hypothetically, we got to find out that the key metrics that they're looking to track at the executive level, they want to see what are the page views that they're getting on their properties. They want to look at what are the unique page views they're getting. So why is this important to them? Because page views are duplicated. So if you just look at this, we're just saying, okay, these are how many people looked at pages. But we want to see how many relevant, unique people on pages are there. And so this is what they told us helps them see that. They also want to track their new users. We've given that here, returning users, average session duration, and conversions. This is all information that they told us from scratch that they wanted to be able to see. And so we have given them, I'm just going to fix this. So we've given them the ability to see all of that information here at that high level. In addition to that, now they told us they wanted to see their year over year. So how have we facilitated that for them? We've shown at a quick glance for page views, unique page views, all our KPIs, you can see what is the year over year performance looking at clearly shown here. And as you filter through the different years and months, it's going to update for them so that they can see how things are moving over time. In addition to that, we've also highlighted now a number that shows us how did we do last year, so that even though they can see the change, if they want to see the number, everything just contextualizes it more for them. And so now everything they need for their state of the business and the year over year is here. But they also did ask for some more information. They wanted to know how are our KPIs performing on a monthly level. So in order to satisfy that, what I've done is I have this chart over here that shows essentially a view that allows them to see all their KPIs at the monthly level. So we have January to December based on whatever year that they select. And now they can begin to use this thing over here to cycle through their metrics. So we can look at the conversions, and you can see now the titles have changed to conversions. They want to see users. You can see the users. You want to see returning users. You can see returning users. So that way, with just this singular view, they can actually look at all their metrics at the monthly level. They don't even need multiple charts. They can also hover and see what happened last year. And so again, because these people are super busy, we don't want them to look too far. We want to give them as minimal, simple as possible, but of course, give them the chance to explore if they want to explore as well. Now, they also said that they wanted to see their activity according to different key actions and dimensions. So what I've done to satisfy that is I've added another view here where we can see the different key actions that are pertaining to their business. We have the signups, the downloads, the subscriptions, the contact form, and they can easily see what's going up, what's going down. They can also cycle through. So these are by key actions. They can cycle through and look at it by the web page. So they also have that dimension. They can see which of their web pages are doing well. Current year, November 22, Black November 2021. So current and previous year, they can see the change here. And they have, I think, 4 or 5 countries. So they can also see that here as well. So again, another view that allows them to see all their dimensions, where technically you can just say, returning users by this, returning users by that, but you're going to end up with a lot of stuff. You're going to make them work a lot. So the decision that we made here, because it's executive people, one single chart, let them explore things how they need to. And now, if you remember correctly, they wanted to know how are they doing with their devices so that they can optimize their content for a device. And so in this view over here, we've been able to give them that same view where they can see their categories, desktop, mobile, tablets. They can see their proportion of each metric by the device. They can see the attainment and then the change. So same thing, they can look at either returning users by device. One thing they may want to look at, which they said is very interesting, conversions by device. So now they see the conversions here, right? Returning users, page views by device, unique page views by device, right? So literally everything, I think it was like those 4, 5, 6 points, everything that they wanted to see, this is all accomplished in a singular page, right? So from an executive standpoint, I mean, you can even go at higher level as this, but this is cool because we understand that these people, they don't have the ability or the time to put in too much effort to search for what they need. So we want to give them quick insights. Now, one other thing which I kind of just added in randomly, in a side discussion, hypothetically, we found out that one of the executives likes to show off his progress to his friends at his party dinners. And so he will sometimes print out slides and take to dinner. And so when we overheard this, we said, okay, maybe what if we can allow them to have this dashboard downloadable? So just from thinking about what they would need and how they would be using it and what they're going to be doing, we now added in this download button that basically allows them to build any kind of view that they want to. Let's say they want to look at key actions. They built that view. They want to look at for the year 2020. They built that. They set up whatever analysis they want to see. Maybe they want to see by, country. They set that up and then they can just download that, take it to their meetings, show up to their friends. Everyone has a good laugh. Everyone is fun. And they're going to really appreciate that because they don't have to worry about building out the analysis. They don't have to worry about printing out. They don't have to worry about all of that. We've given them this amazing tool. And all we've done is basically just listen to what they told us, connect to their need, asked them what they would like to see. And we've basically just built that simple, perfect, no stress view for them where they can get everything there. There's a lot of information encoded here, but at the same time, it's not overwhelming. And that I think should be one of the goals when you're developing is that in as much as we're having a lot of tools, if we're tailoring things correctly, then we should have just enough information to satisfy the need without overwhelming. So this dashboard here, I'm gonna publish it later on, as long as with all the notes and everything. I'm gonna stop around now where I think we have about close to 10 minutes left over. And I just wanna, I've been talking too much. You probably know what I sound like, but I want to know what you sound like. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to see, if you have any feedback or questions. And so for the next little bit there, if you got any questions or thoughts, I'm happy to connect with you. And I hope that this has really been helpful. Essentially, like I said, I'm going to share these materials. I know it's been a lot of content, but I'll share this and hopefully you can go back later on and check this out at your own free time there. So I'll pass it back to you, Abby. We can discuss if anyone has any questions, any thoughts, but essentially that is really what it is. Successful pre-build is going to give you a successful post-build. And I hope that's been helpful for you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Chimdi. Yes, has it been? I hear the chorus of the yes from the room. But if anybody has, I can see a hand up, Siders will come to you, but does anybody here have a question? Okay.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maureen. So I have a couple of questions on the unique page views. I see that your KPI, the triangle pad on the first view, the page views, the returning users has a red color indicating that there's a decrease. But looking at the page views by country and 2020 monthly trend, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing just green and black. Is there any idea behind that?
So the green and black is basically, if you look here, and this is where we can start to utilize those tools. So when you're looking at this view, we've seen here, we've added a legend, which is extra context to show that this is basically telling you the overall versus last year. But here, this is November 2020, and this year is November 2019. So for this particular view here, this is where you need to look at for the color. And so we can see here is up, up, two up, India, Canada, and then three down. So overall, it makes sense that it will be down. And we can kind of see here, this is just current year and previous year. And the color here is just positive and negative. Does that help answer your question?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Sidat. Sidat, you can speak. Can you unmute?
Yes, I've done that. Thank you very much, Abby. Thank you very much indeed. Such a wonderful session. And I've learned a lot, quite a lot. Just a few questions actually. Something similar to what the last speaker asked. I don't know if this session is the right session to ask that, but how did you get to put the arrow up, arrow down? And
okay.
And I don't know, I tried my hands on the dashboard prior to the class just to have an idea. And I don't know, my own view, when I try to put more than two charts, it overlaps in a very rough way and it was not aligned like this. And you seem to have three charts, like it looks so aligned. And I don't know if there's any, maybe we'll be taught later in the session, but I don't know, how did you get this view like this? Like it's so aligned and all.
Okay. So I guess, Ivy, do you mind if I just do like a quick demo here?
I don't mind. Please go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So I'll answer the first one to show how to do the up and down arrows there. So for that, basically, you just need a percentage calculation. So let me grab one that I have here. Metric percent change. So I'm going to put this here. And it's all about the formatting, essentially. So you want to right click. You're going to hit format. And then you're going to, in this pane, which is here, you want to hit numbers. And we're going to do a custom formatting, right? So what we're going to do here is, I'll do this live. Actually, maybe I shouldn't because the screen isn't shared, but I'll show you what it is. Basically, we have, when we go onto Google, you can just type in up triangle, down triangle, copy, paste. And so what we do is you're basically copying that into the custom format here. So you copy a up arrow. This is just text, basically. So I can go like this, Control C. If I go back to here, so for this one, we want to format it in the same way as the other way. So we're going to go custom. We're going to type basically an up arrow, 0.0%. This tells it what to do when it's positive. And then when you put this semicolon here, now it's going to tell it what to do when it's negative. So when it's negative, we're basically saying, actually, this should be a down arrow. Let me grab a down arrow for this. Go here. I'm going to borrow an arrow from here. Control C. So now we have the up arrow telling you what to do when it's positive. And then now we're going to add the down arrow. So we're basically saying when it's positive, format it with this arrow pointing upward and do a percentage with one decimal place. When it's downward, show me this downward arrow and give me one decimal place as a percentage. So that's how you do that for this. You can literally just copy and paste it into any percentage calculation and it changes the formatting. So all that is just custom formatting for you. Does that help answer that part?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. So the second one, I have to do another quick demo here. So let's build out a new dashboard. And I want to show you how you can align things in there without having to stress too much. So let's go new dashboard. Let me unhide my charts and bring in some of them. So unhide all sheets. One thing to consider using in your dashboards, I would say, I highly suggest using containers, and I'll show you why. So let's say I want to have things side by side. I'll bring in a container like this. Let me actually just make it floating in the meantime. So we go like this. We stretch it out. Now let me bring in some KPIs that we've already seen. So let's look at conversions. I'll bring that up, place it here. I'm going to hide the title just for sake there. Let's bring in session duration, put it beside it. And let's bring in, let's say, returning users, put it beside it. So now we brought this into Tableau. If I want to align this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my layout, and I'm going to go to this container that has all of them here. And then I'm going to click here, and then we can tell Tableau, distribute the contents evenly, right? So it stays like this. So now this way, we can start to change things around. We can say, okay, let me add a gray background so that the effect is obvious what I'm doing here. So we're going to make this background gray. Now you can see these are white. So what we can do is I'm going to remove all my margins. And then I want to create spaces between the boxes. I like to use the margins. So I like to use 20 pixels. So I do 20. I add my border. Very light border, actually. I go here. Same thing. I add another space at the side here. So first go to 0, so there's no margin. Here, again, 20. I can add my border now for the KPI box. I can come here, do the same thing. So we're just repeating the same thing over and over. That way, everything looks the same. And then I'm going to add another 20 by the side, add a border. And then I can now come in here because I see this is moved over to the left a little bit. I'm going to make it move to the center. So I can now come here, use the inner padding, which is what pushes, the charts to the left here. We can say 50, color the background white. We can do the same thing, push it inside by 50, color the background white so it looks nice. Same thing here, come here, move the sides 50 in there, background white. And let me fix this border. And so just like that, right? Basically, it doesn't really matter what I do now. I can move this thing around. If I want to add another one, say, let me just show you how Tableau makes it easy. We can add in now new users band. It creates the same amount of space between it for us. We can expand this so that it shows. We can hide this title like before. And we can basically repeat the exact same step that we did. We're going to cover these margins, add some space here, add a border, color it white, and then we want to give some inner padding room so that it looks nice and spacious. So we did 50 before. And so now if we go here, consistent, even, and that took us like how much? Obviously we built the chart, but placing them took us what? 5 minutes there. So Tableau is really what's helping to do all of that. It's more, I think, as you get used to the interface and where things are, it's basically just formatting. So does that kind of show you how you can kind of place things evenly like that? Is this kind of what you were looking for?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Glad to hear it was helpful. Good.
Thanks a lot, Chimdi. I hope that was helpful to everyone here as well. Okay, there's a big chorus of yes, Chimdi. I hope you can hear.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. Well, definitely would share the recording so that you can try. And please, when you try it or recreate this, tag DataVis Chimdi on Twitter or tag any of us. I think our Twitter handles are somewhere. But yes, please try it out. I think we're done with the first half of today. The second half is really just talking to our facilitators that are here, and everyone is just going to share a bit about themselves and their journey. Chimdi, I know it's really early for you and you need to go back to bed, but if you were to give one word of advice, and I know you will give practical advice, like for most of the folks here, they've attended every class, at least, well, a good number of them have attended every class. Some have attended 3 or more. Some have completed the assessments.
Yeah.
Like, what can they do next step? Some people are trying to either switch into data analysis or switch into database or trying to get a job. What is a practical thing they can do between now and January that would probably help them? Yeah.
Now in January. All right. So that's a good question, actually. So what I will share with you is something that I've noticed works not just for me. That way, I'm not just speaking from my experience. I'm speaking from the experience of other people that I talk to, right? And what I would say is, now that you have the knowledge, the next thing you want to do is, while it's still fresh, start visiting, start building dashboards, start creating projects for yourself. I'll tell you something. This entire dashboard, literally from A to Z, I created it from scratch with ChatGPT. I told it what I wanted. I told it about the bootcamp. I told it about everything. We built the data from scratch. So if you now want to do projects, it's no longer that hard to think about project ideas. ChatGPT is free right now. You can pay if you want to, but you can ask it, what are some kind of data viz projects that I can do, right? In X industry, B industry, right? So that way you want to show that you understand how to pull together dashboards. Because if anyone's going to hire you, they need to know that you understand the basics and that you can take that and apply it to their own company. And the only way people can see that these days is not through your resume. It's not even through like you talking to them or them liking you. It's by you showing what you've done. And so for me, since like 2018, I haven't really gone to look for a job because I keep posting online and people keep coming to me to ask me, do you want to? My friends here, same thing. Anytime they want to, really look for an opportunity, they start posting stuff, they start getting visibility. You don't have to be great. You just need to start because there are different levels of job available. Some people are looking for someone that they can take on and bring on and start, really slowly. Some people are looking for an expert, but everybody is looking for somebody who is doing and who is passionate and who they can see is really enthusiastic about this. And so if I'm hiring someone and I see this guy has done like 5, 10, 20 projects, that tells me that this guy really wants to do what he's telling me he wants to do. If this person is telling me, I want to be a data developer, I want to be a data analyst, how many projects have you done? And you tell me you've done 1 or 2, I'll tell you that you don't want to be a data analyst. You actually just want to analyze data as a hobby. Right? So in order to get to people to take you serious, you need to show your skills by posting, apply what you've learned, and that'll help you build confidence before you actually get to work so you can start succeeding much quickly. Do practice, do practice, do practice, do. Has that been helpful?
So much. Grace, you have a question?
Chimdi could be nice enough to drop the prompts he used on ChatGPT.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I will include that with the materials that I share. That way you can kind of see how I thought through things. It was like basically just talking to a person and communicating, and then it's producing results. You can try the same thing. I'll get you all of that stuff and you can check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Chimdi. Really appreciate it.
Great seeing you all. All the best. Take care, okay?
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, so our wonderful facilitators that are here, can you